What's up YouTube, Cliff here from the Sunday Drive. In this video, we're going to show you guys how to fix the terrible factory undercoating that GM puts on all their trucks. This is a 2014 Silverado with about 90,000 miles on it. And as you can see, the corrosion is already starting to take effect on the frame. Now there are many different types of undercoatings used in the automotive industry. GM has opted to use a wax-based undercoating where they take the frame of the truck and dip it in wax, and that's how your frame gets coated. Unfortunately, over time, this wax hardens and will flake off your paint, as I'm going to show you several examples on my frame. Now, I do live in the northeastern part of the United States, so salt is something that we do have to deal with on our roads on a pretty regular basis. Right at the back of my frame is a perfect example of what happens to this wax undercoating that GM puts on the vehicles. As you can see, it's dried out, it's cracked, and it's just flaking right off. I can just peel that right off with my fingers. And you can see underneath, it's already starting to rust. So this is what we're trying to get rid of in this video, and we're going to fix this properly so this doesn't happen again. You can see that the rear trailer hitch is actually painted and doesn't have the factory wax undercoating on this, and this is pretty much in perfect condition. You know, there's a little bit of rust on the welds, but the metal itself is perfect. So you can just see it from here and then up to here, where you got all this rust and flaking off and just no protection once this wax comes off. So what we're going to be doing is a 5-step process to re-undercoat the frame of my truck. Step 1 is going to be removing as much of the wax as possible. Step 2 is going to be cleaning up the frame with some degreaser. Then our third step is going to be taking a metal prepper, and what this is going to do is etch into the surface the metal to allow us to go to step 4, where we paint the surface POR 15. And then as our final and 5th step, we're going to be using a POR 15 rubberized undercoating to go over the whole surface of the frame. And then we should be done. Now we don't want to forget about inside the rails on my frame either. Obviously water and salt can get in there and lay in there and corrode those out pretty quickly. So Eastwood sells a really cool internal frame coating kit that we're going to be using on the inside of my rails. And what makes this kit cool is this extension they sell for the spray cans. And this has 5 nozzles that come off the end. And you can stick that down inside your frame and spray it and have it completely protected. All of the products that we are using in this video you can find linked in the description below. If you guys need to know how to remove your bed from your truck, watch the video at the link above where I remove the bed, the tailgate, and the rear bumper so that we can access everything to do this video. Now what we're gonna go ahead and do is remove as much of the wiring, not so much remove it, but loosen it so we can work ourselves around it, and remove all the harnesses from the frame of the truck so that we have access to everything. Most of these harnesses are held in by 10mm bolts. And that just loosens up. And again, I'm not going to remove these from the vehicle, just going to loosen them up so that we have room to work. Okay. Just putting the screws back in the same place for now, so I'm not confused about where they came from. This bracket right here is held in by 2 13mm bolts. Now what I'm going to do is take a pry tool and release all the plastic connectors and grommets holding the wires to the frame. Make sure you make note of where the wires are coming out of so that you can put them back in the same places. Most of these are coming out pretty easily, so that's good. And just look at that rust right there. You can see just on top of here where the wax went away, and there's no way to access this without removing your bed, unfortunately. Go across here. Thought these were going to be harder to get out, but I'm glad they're not. That means I can do this much better. We're going to go ahead and remove the fuel line from the tank right here, just to give ourselves a little more access to the frame. Just loosen up that clamp with a flathead screwdriver, and then you can work that off. Make sure you stick a rag or something over top of that so you don't get any contaminants in your fuel tank. Now this should disconnect somehow. Why are quick disconnects never quick? We're going to disconnect the grounding wire to the fuel system right here. This uses a 10mm bolt. Now it's a good idea to reinsert all your bolts so that you don't get paint or any of the undercoating into the threads. In order to remove the factory wax, some people actually will spray this down with diesel fuel, let it sit overnight, and then power wash it off. But I found that just taking a scraping tool, such as the back of this wire brush, or even just a razor blade, will take this right off. And you can just see how that peels off, and it just leaves the surface there right underneath. And when the wax works, it works well. The problem is, after time, it does harden up and flake off.
Just no. And every time I see him with you, my heart sounds like Shia LaBeouf too. No.
So we got about 3/4 of the frame cleaned off. It's going really well. What we have found is the most useful is a razor blade such as this. It peels the wax right off, and then also a wire brush in the places that the razor blade won't work. And then once we have most of the wax off, what we're doing is taking a rag doused in diesel fuel and wiping down the remaining wax, and it's really eating through it and it's coming off really easily. So you can see right here we've already scraped most of the wax off, but there's still some residue left. If I take my rag with the diesel fuel on it and I start wiping, you can see that it's just eating through the rest of the wax that's remaining on the frame. And then you can kind of go back and see the areas it's not getting. You're gonna have to scrape here a little more, but this will get the frame really clean. Always make sure you're wearing good hand protection and you have plenty of ventilation wherever you're working. We finished scraping off all the wax as much as we could get off. You can clearly see which parts are rusted now. The rest of the metal is cleaned off. There was a lot of times we were taking off the wax and we'd discover underneath of it rust because water had gotten behind the wax and rusted out the metal. So definitely glad that I got this off of my truck before it got too bad and I can get this corrected. Now, because of the nature of POR15, it's not necessary to fully remove all of the rust. You just want to make sure that you get anything loose off of the surface, but the POR15 will bond with the rust that's on your surface. Now we're going to go ahead and use this degreaser to wipe everything down. You're supposed to mix this with 4 parts water, hot water, to 1 part of degreaser. And if you are using the degreaser, you definitely want to use the metal prep following. Once you're done wiping the truck down or spraying it on, you want to take fresh water and spray all the degreaser off just to make sure the surface is nice and clean. Always make sure you're wearing proper ventilation so that you're not breathing in all these fumes, and have good ventilation wherever you're working. We just finished putting the degreaser on the frame and we wiped that off with water afterwards. It's nice and dry, and now we're going to go ahead and put the POR15 metal prep. What this is going to do is create a zinc layer on the surface of the metal so that the POR15 paint can bond or adhere very well to your surface. Now, they do mention that this is extremely dangerous. You don't want to get it on your skin or in your eyes. That would be very bad. I doubled up on my gloves just to be safe. Good idea to have a second person around just in case you would get any on you. Make sure you have access to fresh water so that you can immediately rinse anything off. But we're going to put this on the surface, let it sit for 15 minutes, and then clean it off with water. All right, so we're to the fun part. We get to paint the frame. All the hard work is hopefully behind us, and now we can get to the exciting part of transforming my frame into something that's going to last for quite a while, hopefully. This stuff is liquid gold. It is not cheap, but well worth the money from the reviews that I've read, so we'll see how it holds up in my truck. We're definitely going to do a long-term review on this product, but for now, let's get to putting this on the truck. One important thing to note, you don't want to shake this product, you want to stir it. They make a point of mentioning that. I'm not sure why. I'm not a paint expert. If you guys know, comment below, but make sure that you stir this, don't shake it. POR recommends that you apply this in 2 thin coats. You can apply more if you want. but do a minimum of 2 thin coats. As with any of the products, avoid skin and eye contact, and make sure that your work area is well ventilated. Anywhere that we had bolts or screws that we removed from the frame, we reinserted those and taped over top of the threads. The reason I want to do this is make sure I don't get any of the paint inside the threads on the frame rails so that these stay free and easy to move. After the first coat of PR15, you can see that some areas didn't get fully covered. That's why it's so important to go back and make sure you're applying at least 2 coats across the whole surface. In areas like this that didn't get really good coverage, I applied 3 coats. Now POR recommends applying the coats in 1 to 2 millimeter thick layers and then waiting between 4 to 5 hours for the paint to fully cure and be ready for that second coat. Now if you have a sprayer, you can go ahead and spray this on. You'll get much more even coverage across the whole surface. So obviously that's the ideal solution, but a paintbrush will work. You're just gonna have to do some areas a few more times than you would with a sprayer. Now as the PR15 cures, I'm gonna go ahead and paint the inside of my frame rails with the Eastwood kit. You're gonna wanna remove the red cap off the top here and install the extension provided by Eastwood. Now because this extension is so flexible, I found it really helpful to attach it to a sturdy metal fishing line. And this allowed me to insert it directly through the middle of the rail, about halfway up. Did one half from one side, the other half from the other side, and this allowed me to get a nice even coat all the way through without dragging the extension along the sides. It's been a couple of days and you can see that we've added some more layers of paint, especially in these areas we didn't have the best coverage initially, and now we have a nice thick layer of POR over the entire frame. Now the last and final step is applying the PR15 spray-on undercoating. This is a rubberized undercoating, and this is really going to help your frame absorb any rock chips without the paint flaking off or getting chipped off. So I really think it's important to do this final step. I went over the whole frame and did 2 coats of this, and I have to say I love the look at the end. Obviously I'm not doing this for how it looks, but it looks really good. It really cleans up the whole job. All the imperfections in the metal and everything are really hidden. So that's how you fix the horrible GM undercoating on your truck or vehicle. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, all of the products that we used in this video as well as the tools are linked in the description below. This was a lot of work, but definitely worth it if you're planning on keeping your truck for a while. If this was your first time tuning in, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, the bell notification, and give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you back here next time. A lot more content on my truck and a lot more content coming. Can't wait to get to it, and we'll see you there.